Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Saturday Morning Tech Show. My name is Todd Cochran, and we have the Ohanasaurus dinosaur on top, and we got Rob,
Host.
and then we got Rob Greenlee on the bottom. Good morning, Rob. I know one of our other guests is calling in a little bit later, so he'll be joining us. But how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing fantastic. It's great to be back again.
Yeah, well,
Get that.
I'm glad to have you back. And it started off at 5 o'clock this morning, me waking up and like not being able to move so fast. So I've been like a little bit behind on just about everything this morning. So, but everything seems to be up and running. I'm not seeing that I
Yeah.
missed anything. So that's good.
Yeah, and we're widescreen for once. I think
Y-
the whole show last week we were like 4:3. So
Yeah,
it's good.
I think what happens is because I have you on because the stream's being pushed on my main connection. I have you guys on a secondary. I have basically two internet connections here in the studio, and that one, I think what's going on there is probably just not enough speed. So I got to look at that and maybe figure out how to potentially mitigate it in the future. But I want to welcome everyone to the show. And of course, we try to do this every Saturday that I'm here in Honolulu. We talk about tech topics of the week and just whatever else comes to mind. And it sometimes wanders off from being tech. But thanks for joining us. And of course, this edition of Saturday Morning Tech is sponsored in part by my good friends over at GoToMeeting. And just want to share a little bit about that. You know, this summer, and with your team that you do business with or your actual business yourself, you know, you're going to be working from different locations. People are on summer vacation. You know, that's been some of the challenges of doing things in the summer is it's always a hassle to work around everyone's schedules. But just because you're away from the office or people that you do business are away from the office doesn't mean that the business stops. It has to continue. And that's why I recommend GoToMeeting. You can meet really online anywhere, anytime from anywhere. And that's the beauty of a GoToMeeting by Citrix. Now, I want to talk just a second here about their HD Faces feature. Now, I've got Rob in here for our Saturday morning tech, and we can see each other, you know, without being able to see each other. You know, sometimes I can watch and see expressions and stuff, just like we do in here when you're in a meeting and you have lots of people in the meeting. You know, you can see up to 6 different people with the HD Faces feature, and you can watch the interaction. Now, you can have more people in the meeting, of course, but I believe up to 28 is the total number of folks you can have, but you have 6 up on the HD Faces, and nothing like being able to see that interaction and working with people and see people scowl or start to doze off to sleep, and you can revitalize if you need to. But the GoToMeeting allows you to collaborate with files and really do plans online, and you can even participate when you're on travel with the iPad app. So that's fantastic. You just load the GoToMeeting app, you join the meeting, and not only can you see everyone in the meeting still on the iPad app, they can see you using the iPad camera. So I love GoToMeeting. It's a great product, and it gives you the flexibility to meet anywhere, anytime, any place. That's a little slogan I used to even use when I was in the Navy. I used to say anytime, anywhere, any place. Same thing with GoToMeeting, and I recommend this for all of my listeners and viewers of Geek News Central. Work smarter this summer with GoToMeeting with HD Faces. You can try it for free for 30 days. Don't wait on this special offer. Visit GoToMeeting.com. Click on the Try It Free button. And if you look right on the webpage now or on the video, you'll see that I've got the GoToMeeting page up. Click the GoToMeeting.com. Click on the Try It Free button. And, of course, use that promo code podcast when you are getting ready to sign up. That'll give us the credit for it. And we appreciate all of you that give GoToMeeting a free trial. All right, Rob. So what's happening in your neck of the woods? I haven't asked you lately. How's your leaf? What's going on with that?
The Leafs doing good. I have to say, it's been really consistent for me as far as being a daily driver back and forth to work every day. I drive about 42 miles a day, so it's been really reliable for me. I did have a problem with my charging unit through a company called Blink. They have like a specialized. It's almost like a little mini computer that you mount on the wall that kind of handles the charging process of the car. And I had had a kind of a software failure on that here over the last couple of weeks. But other than that, it's been a fantastic experience, and I think they really are the future. I think of cars. It's just a matter of how long is it going to take for the infrastructure and the battery power, the actual battery pack to be able to give the kind of range that people expect. And I think it's really a different way to go about transportation. I mean, it's great not having to pull into gas stations to kind of be really clear about it. I mean, I don't have to face a big volatility in the price per gallon of gasoline because I pay the same rate for my electricity every month, pretty much. I mean, there's a little variability between the winter and the summer months, but it's really nice to have that fixed kind of cost on the electricity, and I can charge it at home. I don't have to stop by a gas station and all that kind of stuff. So it's been a great experience. So I would highly recommend it to anybody to consider. Just know that when you go into that car, that it does only have about a 80 to 100 mile range.
Right.
But for 95% of the driving that most people do, that's more than enough. So really, it's just a matter of kind of recalibrating your expectations, and then also realizing a lot of people are going to have a second car, like a hybrid or something like that,
Yep.
that can do that long distance driving, and that's exactly what works for me. So, but it's really kind of a first step. I did it and took a risk in buying this car because it was like a first gen thing, and it was like the first mass produced electric car. Because I figure that if nobody buys these things, we're never going to start to see this change happen. So, and I think it needs to happen.
I've got a buddy who's got in matter of fact, we're getting a lot of audio feedback from you today. It just sounds like regular noise, which is kind of weird. And maybe that's just a indication of us being HD and it's trying to swap audio for video, but it's no big deal. It's fine. One thing that I got a buddy that bought a Chevy Volt, and he lived in a condo. So, how much did it cost for you to have your charger put on your house?
Free.
It was part of the car price.
No, it was part of a federal program that subsidized the cost of the first initial installation of car chargers.
Must be that has went away.
I think it's winding down, but the first batch of cars, and I think they had the budget for like 20,000 first electric cars to actually get their charging unit for free. So
Right.
now we're kind of phasing into a phase where you do have to pay for that. And I have noticed that some of the Nissan dealers have actually started to bundle those with the purchase of a car.
Yeah, his install was $7,000, and of course, he's in a condo, so he
Yeah.
had to run across the yard. And of course, they don't have in his condo did not have garages. They had basically a carport, so he had to run. They had to run a line out through some concrete. And the condo association was the biggest challenge. He had to have like these concrete pillars put on each side, so if someone wouldn't run into it. There was just a whole bunch of. He had to have an insurance policy. His insurance policy is running him about $300 to $500 a year. Just a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm like, an extra $7,000 and to get a charger to your parking stall. I'm like, my God.
Well, I think what you run into that, and I went through this with my installation too, is that it depends on how much electrical work needs to be done. The actual cost of the charging unit itself is usually around $700 or something like that. But it's how much it costs to run that 220 volt connection to wherever your car is. And not all homes and properties have the electrical panel close to your vehicle, right?
Yeah.
So if there's a long distance that has to be run to get power from your circuit breaker box to your garage, then yeah, that's going to really increase the cost of this thing. But more and more of the charging stations are being built into public structures, like parking garages at work, and for about 2 or 3 days, I actually had problems, with my home charger, and I actually did something for a while, which I thought was really interesting, and I hadn't done it before. Was basically use all my charging at work. Uh, yeah, because for like 4 or 5 days I couldn't charge at home here.
Yeah.
So I would actually drive to work and I would charge the vehicle while at work, and then I would drive home, and then I could drive back to work again, and then charge there. So that became my charging unit was a public charging station.
Well,
So it's an interesting.
yeah, he works at a federal facility,
Yeah.
and they came out with a. He says, "Well, I could probably." And of course, he's got the Volt, so he can run on gas if he needs to.
Yeah.
But they came out with a policy saying if anyone's caught plugged in, was going to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, because what was happening was people were coming in and they didn't have charging stations. And according to him, they still don't. So some people were plugging in. So they were
Just a
basically
regular outlet.
yeah, and they basically said, okay, you're stealing power from the U.S. government. We're going to prosecute anyone for stealing power. And so he was really at a dilemma. And the closest charging station, and here in Hawaii, they've really they went in pretty deep, but his closest charging station was a mile and a half. So he'd take his car to the parking place, charge it. He'd go walk the mile and a half to go home, and then so many hours later he'd go back. And they had a limit at that particular place where he was charging. He could only be on the charger for a maximum of 2 hours. And so he is just like,
Yeah.
he was really frustrated. And I think that's one of the if you live, I think if you're going to buy an electric car, you have to make sure that you have your home can support it and not end up with a $7,000, because that defeats the purpose of having the vehicle. When you spend $7,000, come on.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a challenge that the electric vehicles have right now for mass adoption, is working through all of these kind of, not, it's probably not appropriate to say that they're entirely fringe cases, but there's a lot of people that are in those kinds of situations that it's just not practical for them yet.
Yeah.
But I have heard that there's battery technology that's on the horizon that could get up to anywhere from 500 to 1,000 miles on a charge.
That's a game changer there.
Yeah, and really what that makes available is that you basically charge once and you probably don't have to charge for like 2 weeks.
Or
right?
if you are shopping or someplace normal and there's a charge station, you go get your charge there. Someone's usually someplace for within 2 weeks.
So I think it's just it's really a matter of solving this battery technology, and the charging capacity, right? Needs to be upped, and then there needs to be more places to actually do this. And I think we're on the track to getting there. It's going to take probably 10 years before we see half the population driving around electric cars, if that soon. I mean, it could be 10 years before we get 20% of the population driving electric cars, but it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. But we need to stay the course here too. I think it's really easy for people to back off on thinking about electric cars, as the price of gas goes down, right? And start buying, the big gas guzzlers again.
Yeah. How's your electricity bill?
It went up about 10 or 20%, but that's about it.
So what do you think that number actually is then?
Well, I can throw it a daily number at it. I spend about $1 or less charging my car each day.
So that is $1 or less a day. And do you know how much you're paying per kilowatt?
I think it's around 7 cents a kilowatt.
So let me, because I'm kind of curious, because I've asked this question to my buddy and he hasn't been willing to give me a number, because I think it was a little bit of a shocker to him. So you're saying $1 a day.
Yep.
So let me see if I can figure this out. So it'd be, let me divide that. So that's 14 kilowatts. And here, 14 times 0.36. I don't know if it's that big of a savings here, because
your power rates are a lot higher.
5 times higher. So $5 a day. So he initially claimed that his electricity bill And they're trying to set something in place they haven't yet, where you charge peak off peak hours, and they give them a
Yeah.
little lower rate, not much, just a few cents off, because we don't have this real fancy graduated power, where you basically can save money by using most of your power in the middle of the night. So
Yeah.
he said his power bill went up about $100,
Mhm.
and but he doesn't do a lot. Of course, he's using a volt too, so his battery may not be all the way down when he gets home at night too. So interesting. Let's
Well, and
see.
also keep in mind, different areas of the country have fixed rates.
Right.
There's some minor adjustments between winter and summer, as far as So here, there is no benefit to charging at night, because
Gotcha.
what they do with the hydroelectric power stations that supply most of our grid technology, our grid,
Yeah.
is they can adjust the water flow through the turbines.
Got you.
So they actually turn down the power production. Now, if you're running like a coal-fired plant, or you're running like a nuclear power plant,
Yep.
you can't just turn that down.
Right. And
It's
here
not.
it's oil.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's a funny thing too, because everything. Oh, you're in Hawaii. Yeah, everything is run on oil here. So there's no coal, there's no nuclear. They've completely. You say nuclear here, and people just like lose their minds. So
I would imagine being so close to Japan like that, it's
no,
probably.
it's just
Oh,
have nuclear power in Hawaii. Why would you ever do that? And okay, anyway,
yeah,
it,
that's
it's
probably a whole deeper subject, right?
yeah, it's a whole nother subject. So anyway, pretty cool. What's going on with your car? And I just kind of wanted to get updated. Uh,
Yeah.
But yesterday, moving to a different topic, Google said that they're going to be updating their search algorithm again.
Yeah, I
And
saw that.
so what they're going to be doing is they're already looking at over 200 signals to ensure search algorithm delivers the best results. But now they're going to be taking into account a new signal, and it's the number of valid copyright removal notices we receive for any given site. Now, Geek News Central itself has never received a removal notice from anybody ever. But where I have run into trouble, I guess now here's the thing. I understand what they're trying to accomplish here, but I'm a little bit worried about their process, I guess. So as it is now, you can submit a copyright. Anyone can submit any copyright claim against any piece of content. And you do not, all you have to do in the little form that you fill out is say, I'm the owner of it. And there's a lot of people that fill those out and they're not the owner. And
Yeah.
they basically, then you can come back and say, no, I own that, and do a counter copyright claim.
Yep.
And then Google is basically supposed not to penalize you, and you are supposed to then fight it out between you and the supposed copyright holder. Well, if you look at YouTube, and we'll talk about Curiosity here a little later, but when Curiosity, actually the day after the Curiosity landing during my show, I showed about 90 seconds of the video from the actual landing, and that was in the control room in JPL. NASA provided video feed. So this is, I'm doing 80 minutes of content. I got 90 seconds of JPL NASA jumping up and down and screaming. So I get that done. I put that up on YouTube. Less than 24 hours later, boom, 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 I start getting copyright violation notices, automated. And they're obviously automated because I'm getting more than one. First off, it starts off with Al Jazeera says this content belongs to them. Next thing was, and then like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different television stations across it. So everyone that had used that same footage, when it went up to Google, Google said, oh, they're the rights holder. And so I basically, and I'm sure these guys got copyright violations from me saying Geek News Central says it's his. So everyone was claiming that segmented video belonged to them, but yet was provided by the U.S. government, JPL, and NASA.
And I
And
don't believe it's copyright protected.
no. And
in the federal government.
right. So none of that was, I guess, for a better word, no one was the rights holder.
Yeah.
And I'm getting takedown notices from other knuckleheads. And so what do you have to do then? In order to protect your YouTube account, you have to go in and respond to every one of those situations. Say, no, that company is not the fair use holder. The U.S. government holds copyright. I'm claiming fair use. I'm doing news reporting. And then, Google deals with it. But, that's 30 minutes of having to go through and respond to every one of these. I'm scared anymore to put any type of video content in my, like this show here. There was some stuff I saw last night that, I'd be cool to play to the guys. But if I distribute this anywhere, it's going to get dinged. And there's no such thing anymore as fair use. These copyright holders, I understand the absolute abusers, the folks that take and upload a whole album and then link to it via peer-to-peer. I understand that. I understand. But, when you are dealing, they can't differentiate between different groups. And I'm afraid what's going to happen is innocent sites are going to start getting whacked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what's really interesting about this is that one of the protections that Google has had all these years is what that clause called safe harbor, and them not getting involved in these kinds of things has kept them protected. But now that they've dived in, with both feet and are, filtering and looking for this kind of content and actively going after it, basically it's like a Pandora's box that they've opened up, and now they have to go all in now.
Right.
They're going to get sued into, to oblivion by all these copyright holders. I mean, it's going to get out of control, kind of like what patents are today.
Well, I think it's out of control already.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I guess it's just weird what's going on there. And I understand the reasoning for it, but EFF has come out with concerns, and I'm sure sites like mine will be fine, but it is just one of those things that has me concerned. It does, and it hinders me from being able to do what I want to do. And I should have the ability to report on stuff and use video segments and, be just like any other news organization and get fair use protection. But
so it makes me wonder if multiple news folks are throwing up a copyright flag, or is this just an algorithm?
Yeah. See, a logarithm
in Google or YouTube that's doing this.
Yep.
Then that would mean to me that we're creating this kind of competitive world of content here. And then I also read an article from Danny Sullivan from Search Engine Land that was talking about how YouTube is going to escape this penalty, this pirate penalty. So you kind of have this kind of favoritism going on that I think is going to benefit Google.
Yeah.
In the long.
I think it will. I think that there's definitely going to be I don't know. The small guys are going to have to fight like crazy, and if they start depreciating our sites because we're putting, obviously I think what their goal is to get rid of the folks who are doing peer to peer, but video and audio files up. But where does that extend?
It's already, yeah. I mean, if you're using YouTube, you're going to get flagged, right?
Yeah.
But if you are putting your video out not on YouTube, then they're probably not going to do anything to you, right?
Yeah, it's just weird. It's really, really odd.
Yeah.
Let me talk about another topic here. Um, let's move on.
Yeah,
Uh, do do you use Gmail at all, Rob?
I do.
You
Yes.
do.
Yep.
They're setting up a
Years and
new.
years and years.
They're
Yeah.
making a new login page now, where when you come to the login page, you select the account that you have.
Hmm.
So for those of you that have multiple accounts, and this is really, I've basically linked counts already. So I switch between geeknews@gmail.com and CEO@rawvoice.com. I have a Google Apps account. Um, so they're starting to see the utility, and this is pretty exciting with them setting up a new login page to really make this multiple sign-ins easier. And I'm sure you manage a few email accounts as well, and you've probably been over playing with Outlook.com a little bit too, haven't
Oh
you?
yeah, definitely. Yeah. No, yeah, I've had an account there for a long time. I've really started to use it a lot more here over the last few months. It's a compelling offering, and I think that as you look at kind of what's going on with the Microsoft accounts kind of thing direction that that they're moving towards with Windows 8 and Outlook Online and things like that, you can see some real consolidation happening around those properties, and I think it's going to be a pretty compelling offering. Um, so, I'm using both of them, and I think that they're both good. So,
Well, I like to see anything that makes the day go faster, and of course, that anytime you have some optimization, and it's kind of cool for a nice little service.
yeah,
There's a big thing now in the tech space going on where Google, Facebook, all these companies are doing nothing but acquisition hires. They're not necessarily looking to acquire the basically the IP, but they're acquiring companies now strictly to acquire the talent. To me, it seems to me that would be a long term failing situation. You have someone come in and say, "Hey, we want to buy your company, and we're going to make an offer for all of your employees, and if they stay for 2 years, we're going to get so they put out this nice package, but I can't imagine folks that are working in the startup space, especially guys that have the entrepreneurial itch, getting acquired by a big company and then wanting to stay there long term from from this basically this acquisition based on trying to acquire talent.
yeah,
It seems to me like that's a long term failing basically doesn't make any sense to me at all.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree. I mean, I think that it may be a smart move for a short term aspect, but you know, probably those folks are not good candidates to be employees of big companies uh, if they're building successful startups, because they're going to want to jump out and do that again, which means that it's not going to be
And
they're not
especially
going to stick around.
Yeah, especially if they've gotten a payout from the
Yeah, exactly.
acquisition. They're sitting on some cash and they're saying, "Well, I've got enough stuff to make." But some of those things require lock-in. I know a lot of when there's acquisition talks going on, the CEO and selected members of the team will have to agree to stay for a certain amount of period. And that's sometimes 1 or 2 years. And but I guess I just spy this the acqui-hire. I guess that's the way they're calling it.
Yeah,
ACQUI acqui-hire, acquisition hire. It's kind of a weird deal, but I guess if they're so short on talent, this probably makes a viable way to get more people
yeah, and
quickly.
I think what you're also seeing happen here too, and you can see it a little bit with what happened with Skype, and with some of the more recent kind of like app kind of mergers that have happened with Google and those, is that those companies are purchased by the bigger company, and the bigger company just lets them be, right. Doesn't
Yep.
doesn't kind of absorb them into the bigger company. They basically operate with their own brand and their own kind of standalone operation, and able to do what they have normally done. They just have more capital available to them, right? That's the benefit, and that may be, I think, in the long run, what we start to see more and more of, is these companies get purchased, but they're operated as independent operations.
Well, let's talk just a little bit about Curiosity, and of course,
Yeah,
Curiosity's on the deck in Mars. I know you stayed up for the landing,
I did.
and pretty exciting, wasn't it?
Oh, it was. Yeah, I actually watched it on the Xbox Live. Um, they have a live event player on Xbox that is starting to cover live events like this, and so I watched it there on a big 72-inch television, and it was, yeah, I thought it was really phenomenal because it was like broadcast TV was not really engaged in this, and it just was a real phenomenon, of a hit online. I was really impressed to see that there was this much enthusiasm for something coming out of, you know, JPL and NASA. But I was also struck by how NASA actually did something really smart. They packaged this whole mission. I mean, it was like packaged and sold as a compelling thing. It was like a drama that they portrayed. They made these videos. They made the presentation of this event.
Right.
Uh, to have some interest and some drama and some kind of suspense, right? It was like this thriller thing that was happening on the screen. You just didn't know if it was going to crash, or not. I think there was a certain amount of people that were watching it just to see it crash, but there was probably a lot of people that were like cheering it on to success. But I've been really kind of blown away how perfect this mission has gone. I know I've been watching the daily briefings,
Mm-hmm.
off of Ustream, and it's just been phenomenal how perfect this mission has gone.
I laugh because it's, having spent 20 plus years in the Navy and working on some pretty advanced electronics, and having worked on comm systems and radars and all that stuff, you know, electronics are kind of as this weird, especially really advanced electronics are kind of these weird, they're quirky, you know,
Hmm.
and it's like it very rarely do 100% of the systems work 100% of the time.
Yeah. Yeah,
There's
agree.
usually something that radio breaks, and obviously these systems are super hardened and have probably very expensive mil spec, probably NASA spec or mil spec standards that they're following. But still, electronics being electronics, and I know they have fallback systems, but it sounds to me, at least initially, that
Yeah.
absolutely everything is working on the rover. You think about that landing sequence, and they did, like 7 minutes of terror. And I,
Yeah.
I thought we were going to be like 7 minutes of not knowing what happened. They didn't really explain it. We would know the progression. But I think where it really came to light to me is that we're going to be able to follow this thing all the way down is when they announced that Odyssey was turned, had a lock with the vehicle, and basically we were going to see the whole thing going down. So they were going to tones, and they were able to see different tones for different sequences, and it changed its tones depending on what it was doing.
Yeah.
And when basically when they said first thing they said we're on drogue and then we're on the parachute, then boom, we've lost the heat shield, and the people are cheering, and so we've a crowd, acquired ground lock, and you see this building up of this crescendo coming, and
Yeah.
we're in hover, and the sky crane is craning, and we're on deck. It was like I wanted to stand up and cheer. I really did.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Now, Andrew's, I need to accept Andrew on Skype. So let me, so, when you watched it, wasn't it? It was just like a thriller movie. It was the best,
Yeah.
best seat
Exactly.
in town, wasn't it?
Yeah. 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 It was. I mean, it was that 7 minutes of terror was just the delay in the information getting to us, right, from Mars. It's like these things had already happened like 7 minutes before, or 14 minutes before, and we were just hearing about it. So it was like this parallel sequence that was on a time delay, but yeah, that same drama was still unfolded in front of you. So it was. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is that people are actually excited about something with NASA and space now, and that it's just been missing for so long.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Hey, we want to welcome Andrew on board. Andrew, good afternoon where you're at. How are you doing?
Not too bad at all.
Well,
It's been a Great day here.
And hey,
Lovely and
Andrew.
sunny. So summer has really arrived here.
And and you guys get summer a little later than the rest of us do, don't you?
Well, they've already talked about it as the summer that never was.
And here, I think we've got the summer that never is quitting. We've got, well, we don't turn this into a weather show, but you've been hearing about the drought in the United States, and I guess you guys are on the opposite end of the spectrum then, huh?
Yeah, it's been pretty wet here.
So,
It's
well,
the same way it's the same way up here in the Northwest. It's been pretty wet too.
well, it's always wet up there in Seattle, Rob. Come on now.
Well, it's especially wet here over the last few years.
We're just talking about Curiosity, and were you able to be awake for the landing?
No, I was asleep for the landing itself, but I managed to catch the sort of just after the landing and saw the sort of the press briefings and stuff just as I was getting up. So it was good.
Well, I tell you, it was we were talking about the excitement in the room as they were coming in, and the images coming back now are just incredible. I mean, you look, you can tell that. I think the thing that amazes me is when this thing went into its, you just look at the jet exhaust places where it's turned up the dirt from when the sky crane came in and lowered the rover on. That sky crane was perfect. It did not move, and you look at the rover. There's no scuff marks on the ground where it kind of like did any of this when it was actually when it was actually set down.
It's like the stuff of science fiction. I mean, it just happens, and you can imagine that you were 20 years ago you could have been reading a novel about it.
It is truly remarkable, and I guess they're bringing systems online and everything's starting to work, and I guess that's the main thing. And this actually, there's a story in the Los Angeles Times this morning talking about NASA using Amazon's cloud computing in Mars because they say that JPL right now, they say that their data center is taxed to the max. They didn't have enough computing access. So they basically have adopted cloud computing, and they're using Amazon, and they're using that to scale some of their stuff. And they're using JPL are using Amazon to get images, videos, and a variety of different developments to the public. They were using some of Amazon's streaming services. Now that got taxed pretty hard. They were using Ustream as well. They had 4 separate video streams up during the landing, one at JPL, one at Ustream, one NASA.gov, and one other fallback one. And they were, I think I saw 300,000 people on the Ustream stream alone. So they had a huge load to fill. Now, it was challenging to keep the websites up, that many people watching, but I think they did a pretty good job, all things considering, and just keeping the infrastructure with the media rolling.
One thing that I heard in the press briefing yesterday that I thought was really interesting was how little computing processor that rover actually has.
Yeah.
The RAM in it is only 4 gigabytes, or the storage, I should say, the overall storage of the operating system and file storage is only 4 gigs. Now, granted, there's 2 computer systems. One's a primary and one's a backup, but only 4 gigabytes. And I think they said it was like 120 megahertz processor was in it.
I've heard conflicting stories. One said 200, the other said 700. So I don't know.
Yeah, I heard them yesterday in the briefing say that it was only 100 and something gigahertz processor.
100 gigs.
Yeah.
100 megahertz or 100 gigs?
Oh, it was 100.
Probably 100 megahertz. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. And it's pretty incredible if you think about it.
But they did that because I guess it's like a hardened processor that's resistant to radiation and heat and all this kind of stuff. So they really have to make their components really able to survive the temperatures and the radiation. And so I thought that was really fascinating. It's a part of it that they really haven't talked about much.
But I just I think it's a big win for them and their partners. And you know, you look at the other. There's another. What is it? Opportunity is still alive. You know, and how long's that been on the planet now? A long time.
Years or more, yeah.
Yeah. So
I thought it's the guy who's doing the tweets is very clever. I mean, I've been watching one of the other rovers, and you kind of feel you kind of get to know the rover. And there was the one that's sort of facing the Martian winter, and you're kind of really saying that it's coming down to its very last tweet. And I think the last tweet that it sent was just in binary, and I think it said triumph or something like that in binary. But it was just the way that you kind of got to know the rover, and it was beginning to kind of come to the end of its own life.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, they've gotten a lot of science out of the rover. But you know, I must admit though, Andrew, the guy that is doing the tweeting, he has been really clever, hasn't he? And some of the
Yeah.
and you just wonder how long he's. I was looking for the latest tweets, and I guess I have to go over the JPL site because I'm seeing some of the NASA stuff. And the NASA stuff is boring, but the Curiosity tweets are really good. And you know, you know, it's like you're just kind of laughing, you know, like the Curiosity's got a personality, you know. So it's inanimate object on Mars. But well, hopefully they'll be able to do good science with this, and I'm looking forward to seeing them to start roving. I know they're a ways away from being able to do that yet as they go through system checkouts, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think they're trying to figure out which way they want to go too. I
Right.
think that's part of their decision making process, is trying to look out for obstacles and try and find out, well, where's the best science, you know, really for them to go towards, or they just sit there and do a bunch of science projects. I think that's on the table too.
Yeah, I think they're going to do that a little bit initially anyway.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Airbnb. I've never used this.
Yeah.
Last night, my mother-in-law's here, and so we want to go stay. We're going to go to Maui, but after you price 6 tickets, you know, even being in here in Oahu and just going over to Maui, you think, oh, no big. You just jump on a little commuter and you get over and you come back, and yeah, $1,060 later for 6 tickets, right?
Oh,
And
yeah,
we used to buy round trips for like $27 or one ways for $27. Those days are long gone. But so Airbnb, I told her last night, go on Airbnb and see if you can find something downtown, because there's a lot of timeshares down there. So she's looking around at Airbnb, and we actually may have booked a decent place right on the beach in Waikiki using their service. Have either of you guys used this or known anybody that has used Airbnb? And I don't know, Andrew, if you're familiar with them or not, but you basically can live in someone's house while you're on vacation.
Yeah, I haven't used it. I haven't had a need to use it. Yeah.
No, I've not used it. I think they've relatively recently launched in the UK because although I'd seen some of the stuff about them from the US, there's been a few reviews in the sort of major newspapers over here in the past few weeks. So I think they're relatively new over here.
They had a record 60,000 bookings last week. 75% of them were from new users of the site. Now, if you think about this for a second, 60,000 bookings compared to the number of hotel rooms in the United States is not a lot, but you know, that's a significant number. If you're looking, you know, this is, you know, so I know a lot of people are using this. I shouldn't say this out loud. I'm actually looking at this for Vegas for CES. Because, you know, it's our hotel bill has gotten pretty large. So I'm looking for a way to, you know, save money, keep costs down. And, you know, we may have to drive to the convention center, but this might be the way to go. But if you haven't tried it, next time you're getting ready to go on travel somewhere, see if they have. Now I'm looking here. They have. It looks like they've got lots of people staying. They show London hits and Rio, Bali. So people are using this quite a few different places throughout the world. So I guess like you said, Andrew, they're rolling out to your neck of the woods. But maybe a good choice for next holiday. Save some money on staying in a hotel. Of course, you guys do a lot of bread and breakfast there. Like bed and breakfast is huge in the UK. I don't, and hotels are fine too, but I just find the atmosphere better at bread and breakfast in the UK.
Yeah, they don't. I think they don't. Until quite recently, they didn't quite have the same cachet as I think some of the bread and breakfasts in the US. But certainly, when we were traveling around the place when we were just a couple, we used B&Bs quite a lot.
And it's always nice to go to a 5-star hotel, but you're also paying a 5-star price.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, WordPress has updated their iOS app, and it's getting pretty positive reviews. I have never used this app at all. Have either of you guys used the WordPress app on your mobile device?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
And I'm not tremendously impressed by it. I mean, I find it's just doesn't have the features that you normally would want to use to manage your blog. So
Well, they've updated it, and they've added a new UI. They've support for different type of post formats.
that's good.
They've got a preview feature that's on the iPad only, which is good, especially if you're doing writing on a mobile device. You want to be able to get that review. So they've got some landscape orientation support, which is good. But anyway, I've never played with it, but I'm definitely going to have to check it out. If it makes it easier to put photos up in quick post, I guess it's okay. But we don't do a lot of quick post at Geek News Central. Most of the stuff is a little bit longer format.
Yeah, whenever I've used it, I've always found that it's been okay for gathering stuff when you're out and about, but you've always had to go back to your PC to kind of, put that final little bit of polish to it, and you're never quite too sure whether the pictures are right and things like that. So
Yep.
I think it's great just for, as you say, for quick posts, but I think if you want a more professional finish, certainly whenever I've been using it, I've had to go back to my PC and just tidy it up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think last week this time, Rob, we were talking about Craigslist, and they're basically coming down hard on people trying to use their site and export data into apps and stuff, make the site easier to use. And Craigslist was basically, every time you're putting something up on Craigslist, they were asking you for an exclusive license to your post. And apparently the folks at Craigslist have had a little bit of either they were afraid or a little bit upset, or not upset. Maybe they got an earful from their users and got some pushback, but they've dropped the exclusive license to your post. It just makes you wonder if someone over there said, "Hey, we're probably causing more trouble than it's worth." And I kind of, well, I was getting feedback there, kind of upset me, because I was like, here we go again. You've got a site that disrupted the newspaper business and having classified ads, and they're obviously trying to protect that in a big way. But what makes people motivated to try to build a competing site is when companies do stuff like this. So do you think they just kind of had this wake up call over that said, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. Maybe this is going to drive someone to build a Craigslist alternative?
Yeah, I think it doesn't make a lot of sense to do that with people's posts like that. I mean, it seems like an unnecessary thing for them to actually do. And you're exactly right. It could cause people to start going over to other places to do this. Now, granted, there aren't too many other places at this point for that kind of thing.
They were trying to shut down 3Tap and PadMapper, and I had not used either of those apps. But I was like, oh, let's go check out 3Tap and PadMapper. So they drove me to the app.
Yeah. And it might give a boost to those guys and get them in a place where they might be able to more compete. Yeah.
Or Craigslist may come over and said, hey, well, you can't beat them, join them, right? Let's buy you. That could happen too.
Yeah.
So Andrew, on classified ads, what is the site of choice in the UK to sell stuff?
Probably the best known one is Gumtree. I don't know if you have that in the States, but it's kind of like a local classifieds ad. So if there's something that I guess falls between FreeCycle and eBay, people tend to go to Gumtree. And it's great for bigger items, like sofas and stuff where,
right.
It's not going to be practical to post it. A friend of mine was just saying last week that I think he put a sofa on the Gumtree website at 9:30 in the morning, and by lunchtime somebody had come and taken it away. So it is pretty successful.
Yeah, I think that's probably the equivalent then there to Amazon. My wife, she's I shouldn't tell on her here, but when she's quite and I don't know if this is the right term. This is what we used in Japan. We used to call people that were out spelunking, and basically would be out driving in Japan every Saturday is trash day, and for some reason it's there on Saturday. They don't have like weekly pickup, but it's on Saturday, and so what would happen is people go out shopping Friday. And then because their houses are small, oftentimes they would have to go and put TVs or couches or chairs on the street because it just didn't fit with the new piece of furniture or piece of, and people would drive around in the very early morning hours and basically go look for furniture and appliances and TVs. And oftentimes you would see this stuff show up in the Japanese equivalent of thrift shops and stuff. So when we moved here to Hawaii, oh my gosh, it was like it's one, she goes garage sailing, but she also if she sees something that's really good on the street, she'll do a U-turn and come back and get it. And then it's, my garage is like this ever in and out of stuff. She'll get something in, she'll paint it, she'll sand it down, paint it, and the next thing I know, it's on Craigslist and someone's coming by and buying someone else's junk that she picked up on the street. So she has done very, very well. And it's just, it's not like it's every day. It's just random. But it seems like, where did that come from? Oh, I found that over at such and such, and I brought it home. And I'm like, no need to say anymore. As long as it doesn't come inside my house, it stays in the garage. But DNS stuff, I mean, without Craigslist, she would not have been able to do this because it's the same deal. Put it and she'll price it to sell. Put it in Craigslist in the morning and someone's here in the afternoon to pick it up.
Yep. No, it actually works that fast. I mean, we actually, before we moved into the house we're in now, we had a much bigger house, and we just had to sell off a bunch of our stuff because we wouldn't be able to fit into our new house because we downsized. And and Craigslist was invaluable to us to get rid of all that stuff.
And did stuff move pretty fast when you had to put a bunch of stuff up like that?
Yeah, I mean, well, of course, it depends on what it was, right? Some things we couldn't give away, and other things lasted like an hour, So it's just. And then if you have like a regular garage sale, you can promote that garage sale on Craigslist too. So
another man's junk is another man's treasure.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's move from junk and let's talk about BitTorrent and ISPs doing throttling. I talked about this a little bit on my last show. I didn't spend a lot of time on it because there's a lot of data that you can really get down deep in the weeds at and looking at their tables and so forth. But there was been some data collected over the past couple of years that was published in the Google-backed Measurement Lab, and it gives some insight into the BitTorrent throttling practices of ISPs. Now, you think we're not supposed to be throttling here in the United States. Comcast got in trouble for that. But here's some interesting facts. In the United States and Australia, most large ISPs limit less than 10% of BitTorrent transfers. And the UK and Canada, on the other hand, some providers interfere with up to 75 to 80% of the BitTorrent traffic. They throttle it. So there was a very good report. Now, Andrew, who are you with in the UK? Who's your internet service provider?
I'm actually with a company called Sky. They're a satellite broadcaster, really, but they have the triple play of the satellite TV, your phone, and your broadband internet.
Right. So let's see here. We'll look by country code, and how do they have this listed? What would be your country code that you would look up for your listing? Would it be
44? I think, isn't it?
They don't list UK. It's like US is US. What is yours?
Try GB.
Yeah, there we go. GB, Great Britain. Okay, so let's see if we can find Sky in their list. Wow, there's a lot. There's Sky Broadband.
Right, that'll be them.
They have no. How come there's no record? Let me look at all. Who's PH? That's definitely not the. Yeah, there's nothing in there for. Okay, let me look. Make sure there's. Yeah, they had a listing for Sky Broadband on country code PH. I think that's the Philippines, but nothing for. Well, let's look at all the listings they have for Great Britain. Let me refresh this site. But what I found was remarkable was the actual percentages of some companies, and
I know. I think BT is one of the worst.
yeah, and if I stack this, let's see here. See if I can find the worst one. 32% was Talk Talk. 27% was Orange. 35% was Janet. 46% was BT. 57. Yeah, there's another BT. O2 is 8%. B Sky B is 8. Virgin Media was 22%. So pretty. They're doing a fair amount of throttling. Now, if I load the U.S. only listings and bring that up, and let's see if I can sort by worst. Can't do that. Go to the bottom here. It looks like to me the worst in the United States, at least. Oceanic is 10%, and that's who I have. Oceanic/Time Warner. Cablevision 4%, AT&T 3%, Time Warner Cable 5%, Quest 8, CenturyLink 12, Clearwire 2. So overall, usually about less than 10% on throttling. Didn't Comcast get in a lot of trouble for throttling and packet? Did they get a fine by the FCC for doing that? I remember.
I don't know. Actually, I'm not sure that I recall any fine or anything like that.
I know there was quite a backlash,
Yeah.
But
well, it was all
was
about
was the issue not that they were
issue, right?
doing it without telling anyone, rather than the fact that they were doing it and telling people?
Yeah, maybe that's what it was. Maybe it was the fact that they weren't telling anyone versus the fact that they were doing it.
Yeah, because they're clearly doing it.
Right.
And we're all being throttled to some extent, I think, based on what we're using our data for.
Well, I'm convinced that they, even though I've got this big fat pipe now finally here, I'm convinced that there is a certain amount of throttling that goes on a certain amount of times. It says you do a speed test, and I think what they do, I think they know all the speed test sites, and they keep that wide open. They don't throttle those IPs, but as soon as you start trying to load some sites, you're like, boy, this is loading slow. And I think they do a little trickery there, a little sleight of hand action and playing with the data.
Yeah, or if you're doing a live video call like this.
Right. So, something blew up last night, and this is on the media side, and I don't know what exactly happened. All I know is on CNN's Fred Zakari apparently has been suspended. Do you know? What's the story on that guy?
Fareed Zakaria.
Fareed Zakaria.
He has his own show called GPS.
Yeah.
On CNN, and from what I gather, and I was looking at this here recently, he did. It's a scandal around plagiarism.
Oh.
So he actually, I guess, cut and pasted something from some other article into a post that he made off of CNN.
Well, that doesn't happen at all with major media, right? They never steal anything from bloggers or any websites,
Yeah. So he's getting his hand slapped right now.
So he has been suspended. Interesting. Well, if you can't write it, steal it. But in this case, he just getting suspended, maybe fired.
Who knows?
For journalists, that's a big deal.
It is.
For bloggers, they do it all the time. No one ever says anything. But for journalists, they obviously a so-called professional, and I guess he's not so professional anymore, is he?
Well, I was starting to question how much journalism really exists at CNN anymore, actually. So
Well, I begin to wonder if any
this is a good
journalism
sign, I guess.
I don't think journalism exists on any site. I think on Fox, NBC, MSNBC, all those channels, all you hear are it's entertainment. It's not news,
Yeah. Well, that's what brings in the eyeballs now.
Yeah,
Not the hard-hitting news. If you want to go watch hard-hitting news, go watch a podcast called Democracy Now, and you'll walk away from that show depressed.
Are they an equal opportunity basher? Do they bash both the right and the left?
Yeah, definitely. Well, they lean more towards bashing the right because there's more material to be had over there. So
I don't know about that right now. Of course, this morning there's, I guess, some news, and we are not going to turn this into a political discussion, but I guess Romney's made his pick, huh?
Yeah. Exactly.
So Andrew, has the news in the UK turned into a comedy show, or is it?
No, I mean, there's both the BBC and Channel 4 probably have pretty good news shows. Certainly Channel 4 is very well respected. So is the BBC. Channel 4, I like it. It comes on at a good time. Don't just get home, and then it's the news is on at 7:00, so it suits me very well. But at the moment, most of the news is obviously all around the Olympics, being here in London. So that's pretty much all the TV news and all the TV channels have at the moment is Olympics coverage.
Well, at least you do.
Yeah.
We get it here after it's been, announced.
We have about the Sky that I'm with. They have 12 or 16, I think it is, channels of HD coverage from the Olympics, and basically whatever sport you're interested in, they'll be showing it live throughout the day. So my wife's really into her horse riding, and we'll set the DVR to record it, and she'll come home and have 6 hours of equestrian material, every rider, every event. It's great, absolutely amazing. And I'm sure going back to the Curiosity landing as well. I mean, I don't think there'll be any doubt that this week will come out as being the week that has the most internet traffic by a very, very long way. Just because everyone is streaming it. I mean, when I'm at work or whatever, we've got it on the TV, and it's being streamed through BBC iPlayer. So I think the amount of data this week will just be enormous.
Well, it is interesting to see a different. I would have never imagined. I'm still getting feedback from time to time, and I would have never imagined, based upon your writings, that your wife was a big equestrian fan. So, it's depressing. I think we're GMT -10 here in Honolulu, and so it's in the folks that are on the East Coast, it's not so bad for them because they're not that many hours behind. But the farther you go away, we're like halfway around the world, so it really sucks. And because you try not to have spoilers. My wife loves gymnastics. She wanted to, and she's online with her iPad. She goes, I'm like, oh, what happened? Oh, I know who won already. And I'm like, well, we shouldn't have been online if you didn't want to know who won. So
yeah, I don't think there's been really much live Olympic coverage here in the States. I don't think it really.
Well, I think they have 3 channels.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 3 channels and at different times, but I think I turned down the wrong pot. Yeah, it was Andrew was hot, so I was turning him down, and I think I turned Rob down instead. So, but how much more of the Olympics is left? I don't even know.
Tomorrow's the last day.
Yeah, it ends on Sunday.
Wow. So, I guess as you say, it will be in the can. So probably the big stuff is probably already done.
Mm-hmm.
But,
yeah, they had the 100 meters last week, and there's been the 200 meters, and I think the big one tonight is the 4x100 meter relay.
Okay.
So that'll see your man Usain out again.
Well, let me see what else we got in the tech stack here. Let me look at the time. I'm okay on time. The Of course, here it's politics time in the United States, and every other ad you see on TV is a political ad. It's a little. And actually, we're having a primary election here in Hawaii today, and I did absentee voting, sent my absentee ballot in last week. But the FCC is requiring television stations to basically disclose how many political ads they've sold, and it's creating an administrative headache for the network affiliates in these battleground states that deal with a dozen or more campaigns. So I'm hoping that this online database that they're launching is going to allow all of us to get a look and see. It'd be kind of cool to see this insight on advertising being bought by political groups. Now, a few months ago, I got approached by a very big campaign to put together a podcasting advertising campaign for a political group or candidate. And they never came through and did the buy, because I think what it is just easier for them to buy TV and radio. And it's just, they don't have to work very hard at it. And basically I think I was just too much work. But I'm thinking to myself, okay, so as this political advertising now has to be reported by the television stations, what happens for the digital side? Is the digital side going to have to log all of these political ads like they would in the broadcast space? Or do you think I really don't know that answer, but do the same rules apply as we're still wild, wild west?
Yeah, I think we're still Wild Wild West. I don't think there's any plans for that, because I just don't think it's being done that much quite yet. So once it's being done more, and then I think it'll probably be part of the discussion. But I don't see it happening anytime soon.
And I find this incredible. Records on a site over at ABC affiliate WSYK in Columbus, Ohio, in just 1 week sold 40 separate 30-second ads worth more than $23,000 to a pack. Just one pack spent 23 grand. You think about the money being spent on political advertising. This is like the cash cow come home for the networks.
Yep.
Now, Andrew, do you see, when it gets into the political season in the UK, do you guys have the same level of television ads? How does that, because of the BBC setup there, how does that work?
It works very differently in that there's no real. Sorry, the political parties can't buy advertising space.
Oh.
What happens is that there's what's called a party political broadcast, and they are slots at a particular time that go out quite often, not quite simultaneously, but usually within half an hour of each other, just depending on the scheduling. But each political party will get roughly the same amount of time, and for some of the smaller parties, they'll get less time, but they will still be entitled to it. So coming up to the general election, you'll have a party political broadcast on behalf of the Labour Party, party political broadcast on behalf of the Conservative Party, and so on, depending on where you live. But that's how it works here. So they can't really go and buy additional advertising on the TV.
Rob, I think
sounds like a great plan to me.
Sounds like a plan to me.
I mean, they advertise. They're allowed to advertise in other ways. I mean, I think they can buy space in newspapers, but the spending on elections is quite carefully controlled.
I tell you, it is insane what's going on here. I have never, Hawaii is a million people, and we have it's very left leaning. And usually the token Republicans that are on a ticket here are usually crushed just because the state is so heavily left-leaning. And so the candidates very rarely have to do any type of advertising. Usually it's the 3 or 4 Democratic candidates who are battling out between each other. That's where you see most of the advertising, then maybe the one token Republican ad. But I have never seen here in Hawaii the level of advertising going on this year from PACs. I mean,
what are these PACs?
Well, basically, a political action committee is supposedly, again, I'm supposedly a non-affiliated group that supports or hates a candidate. So right now in Hawaii, we've got this $5.6 billion mass transit system that's going to be built. It's a steel on steel rail raised. Now imagine the beauty of Hawaii, and we're going to run a raised railroad down through, starting out here by the country where I live, into Honolulu, actually downtown where the business district is. It's going to take 10 years to build, and people on my side of the island love it. They can't wait. And the people that are not going to have access to it on the other islands, plus different parts of here, are against it. So they had a vote a couple of years ago where they voted to go ahead and spend the money. But since then, new information's come out, and there is a candidate that's running completely saying, I'm going to kill the rail. And then there's the other two saying, and it's mayors. It's not a state project, it's a city project. So a PAC was formed here by the Carpenters Union, the guys that, yes, have nails and saws and whoever else belongs to the Carpenters Union. And they have spent $1 million on local advertising to try to defeat the anti-rail mayoral candidate. And because they know this $5.6 billion project is going to mean a lot of jobs for the Carpenters Union. So they formed their own PAC and have been just slaughtering this mayoral candidate. So that's how these PACs are essentially formed. Now, supposedly, none of these PACs are supposed to have any direct contact, link, connection to any of the candidates. But oftentimes, if they really dig into it, they find that on both sides of the fence, both Republican and Democrat, the presidential PAC, or whoever has a couple of PACs for the president, or whoever has a couple of PACs for the other candidate, you can almost guarantee, if you really look deeply, there's some colleagues there that know one another.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And they
wouldn't be involved doing it if there wasn't some connection with the campaign.
Right. And they can spend as much money as they want. And they also made it now that corporations, is that still true? Corporations can donate now to political campaigns. It used to be you couldn't.
It's the same thing as, I mean, a lot of the bigger companies are putting together super PACs themselves. So, and funding it through employee contributions and things like that.
So what'll end up happening here, at least, in the United States, there's going to be billions of dollars being spent on advertising, trying to get the message out for these candidates. And it starts a year out. And I mean, it makes you not want to watch TV or listen to the radio. And probably people are saying, quit talking about it in this podcast.
It's what DVR's for.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not favoring any particular party here, so I think you're safe.
Yeah, so it's insane the amount of money being spent. But it'll be curious to see if once someone gets their hands into this data, they're going to be able to tell us a lot about what's being spent and where and by who. And I think the network should have to report this to the FCC. I don't care if it's tough. They're making a lot of money on these ads. This is a huge time for them.
So, Todd, have you been following the whole stock drama around Facebook?
Oh, it's, I'm glad I didn't buy any stock when it was an IPO.
Well, here next week, they're coming into a period of what's called the lockup ends. So there's a certain chunk of shares, and I think it's like 20% of the overall outstanding shares of Facebook is going to be, available for those early investors to sell.
Right.
So it's called the lockup is ending, right? And there's big stakeholders that have big blocks of shares. And so it'll be interesting mid to early next week what happens to the Facebook shares if they plummet, because there's so many people dumping shares, or if people hang on to those shares, right, because they see a long-term future. So I think we have an interesting, kind of inflection point for Facebook coming up here this next week to find out where people stand on their view on the future of the company.
Yeah, and they could have some cash flow. The whole cash flow situation could get funky over there, can it?
Well, I mean, if you look at their overall financials, they seem to be doing well from a revenue standpoint. They seem to be growing, and they seem to have solid growth. It's just it's this lingering question about mobile revenue, right? That seems to be lingering over these guys' heads. And I don't know that we have a real answer to that question on how Mark is going to unlock that treasure chest of revenue, because it seems like that's what he has to do in order to take this company to the next level from a financial perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think the stock was over. I think the whole, when you think about when they priced the stock, they priced it so many times over earnings. What did they expect?
Crazy. Yeah. So I think it's sitting right now at about 21 and 21, 22 in that range. I think it was up a little bit last week, which is an interesting sign, kind of coming into this sell-off that could happen next week, that people were buying in at that level.
But could it also be that the price is being driven down, knowing that the stock is going to become available, and these stockbrokers, who are all a bunch of shady bastards, are going to try and manipulate the stock down to get it cheaper? Then could they be manipulating it so that they'll make some money on the price going up?
Well, yeah, I think, if these big block holders of shares sell off after this kind of deadline ends, then you could see that the shares drop because a lot of people are selling. But it just depends on if people are picking up the stock, right?
Yeah.
If people are buying it, or they're just kind of left there not sold, then it's going to be interesting to see what happens to the stock. And it really depends on the market's confidence in the long-term revenue opportunity that Facebook has.
Yeah, I just I've never clicked an ad in Facebook, so I don't know how they're making their money. I really don't.
Yeah, I think the problem with Facebook, and certainly amongst a lot of my friends, is that you kind of use it because you have to, and that everyone else is on Facebook. But I mean, a lot of us do complain about the ads that you kind of sometimes see, and the constant barrage from just maybe one or two of your friends who are playing Farmville or whatever, and are saying, come and help me grow some corn or whatever. And I think the big problem with Facebook is that if an alternative came up, a lot of people would just jump ship over to the other alternative. So I don't really, it's only the critical mass that keep people in there. And I think increasingly people are getting annoyed with Facebook.
Yeah, I find myself on having better conversations on Google Plus, but that's a whole nother conversation. I use Facebook to stay abreast of family, cousins, and people I went to high school with. That's and talk about ghosts that I see outside my door. That's. I don't know if you guys saw my Facebook post or not, but I saw a ghost the other night. We're going to talk about it on Monday's show.
Did you get a picture?
No, I wish I would have. If I'd have been, it only lasted a couple of seconds, but it scared the crap out of me. And some people say I was drinking something, but I was completely sober at the time.
Loopy, but sober. No.
I was. Believe me, it was one of those things where my jaw about dropped. It was good.
Wow.
Yeah.
So on the Facebook thing, August 16th is the date to keep an eye on if you're curious about following this. That's the lockout date.
Would you sell, or would you hang onto your stocks, Rob?
I don't actually have any shares of the company.
But if you
what
did,
I'm trying to determine if I do want to have shares of the company. I would probably. I'm looking for the shares to drop and then buy in at that point, because I think the company does have a good long-term future.
Right.
So, but anyway, that's just a speculated guess at this point, because I don't know that the whole revenue piece of it's been proven entirely yet.
Rob, do you have Dish, or do you have cable, or what do you got there?
Comcast.
So you're not missing Mad Men or anything like. Of course, I think Mad Men's already over, but this
Yep.
big battle going on between Dish and AMC. I was reading an
Well,
article over in Ad Age about this,
mhm.
and it appears that this is a little bit deeper story than what people initially thought it was just on carriage rights. It appears that AMC is getting ready to, well, actually, they are already suing Dish for another issue. And part of that lawsuit may be causing part of the problems with Dish negotiating their way back onto, or AMC negotiating their way back onto Dish. So the chairman at Dish made this beyond inflammatory comment the other day. He says nobody at Dish Network, excuse me, Chairman Charles Argan's house, nobody at Dish Network's chairman Charles Agron's house has ever watched IFC, Sundance Channel, or WETV. He says no one watches those channels. Why would, it's not hurting us. So, here's this guy saying those channels suck. And essentially he, reach out and slap AMC. I just find it incredible that someone that relies on having television channels on their cable system, even if it's satellite, would make a comment about that, even if you have a partner that you're negotiating with.
Yeah, it sounds like it's getting personal.
Yeah.
What's going on there? Yeah,
Um,
and it's not very professional to talk like that about your partners.
So Dish has replaced AMC with Mark Cuban's HDNet movies, which is so-so. I don't have Dish here. We've got cable, which is I think we're about ready to cut the cord again on. Got my wife talked into it. But, Mad Men was hugely popular, and they're getting ready to come up with some sort of a zombie show that they're saying is going to be big called The Walking Dead.
Well, that's been out for a few seasons.
Oh, has it? Okay.
Yeah, it actually is a very popular show. I know. Yeah. Yeah, I think this is its third season coming up here.
So now, what is it with zombies anyway? Why are we on this big zombie kick? Let's talk with some guys about that. Like, everyone is into zombies right now.
Yeah. Well, it's been that way for a couple of years now.
But why? Why is it used to be like, the vampire thing's still big too. Why? What has drove that?
I think it's just the scariness of it. It's like a thriller kind of thing, and it's also this. It gives you a free license to just shoot things. You know what I'm saying, right? I mean, it's like, well, he's already dead, so if I shoot him in the head, who cares? Right?
So it's blood and gore. So it's a way to have a violent television show without coming under the scrutiny of the people that are saying the show's too violent. So if you had a show where a guy was going around just blowing people away, then they wouldn't get the same scrutiny, or they'd get different scrutiny.
Exactly. It's okay because the zombie's already dead. So,
Andrew, are you a zombie fan at all?
No, I'm not really into the horror. But I was just thinking of do you remember there was that game back probably in the 90s, Carmageddon, that got all the press, and there was you drove over pedestrians and there was red blood everywhere. So, and there was such an outcry that they did exactly that, and that they changed them into zombies, and that instead of the blood being red, it was green, and therefore it was all right at that point.
Oh man, that's funny.
So no, I'm not a big. I quite like some of the sort of semi-comedy horror, but I'm not a big horror fan at all.
Because Rob, I think you hit the nail on the head, because just imagine if you had a television show that was just depicted going out and doing mass murderers, and then someone just like this situation that happened in Denver, then the television show would probably be sued because of that it drove someone to violence per se. Yeah. Well, AMC is still negotiating, and they don't think it hasn't hurt their earnings yet, but it will impact them next quarter. They get 13% of their revenue from through Dish. So we'll see. We'll see where this goes. Now, the story that I really was intrigued on earlier in the week, and we won't know the result of this for a little while, but a judge has ordered Oracle and Google to disclose paid journalists and bloggers. I thought, paid journalists and bloggers, people are paid to play. That happens. I know it happens because people try to do it all the time. What do you think is going to? Okay, so let's assume that the judge has good insight here, and both Oracle and Google come out and say, "Here's our list." What do you think will be the impact for those journalists that participated in a pay-to-play thing with Google and Oracle?
Oh, I don't know. There's going to be a certain amount of backlash and a certain amount of, I think it's safe to say, some envy. Backlash and envy at the same time.
Yeah.
How come I didn't get paid to blog? Yeah. I think
one guy already admitted took money. He gotten money, and
Yeah, I think he did. I think he disclosed it at the time.
Yeah. So, is there more? And at what level does this go to?
yeah, that's the question.
You know, I get email. Go ahead.
No, I think that's the question. I mean, what kind of levels of journalism and journalists are we talking about here? Are we talking about New York Times? Are we talking about Washington Post?
Yeah,
or
that's it.
is it just the regular Joe tech blogger out there or guy doing a podcast? Yeah.
You know, the FTC's already told people that you have to disclose when you're writing for someone, and that's part. And if they're not doing that, then these folks could be found in having violated FTC rules. You know, I get emails all the time from vendors saying, "Hey, Todd, we've got an article we'd like to submit to you to post up on your blog." And I'm like, "Yeah, right. I'm going to take your article wholeheartedly and the links you have in it and put it up on my blog. Yeah, we've got this great piece." And, you know, so that's kind of calmed down a little bit. But I mean, I was getting 20 of those a day. "Hey, we've got this pre-written piece. Would you like it for your blog?" No. You know, and it's amazing because they would include it. You know, they would just send it with you thinking that you're just going to cut and paste into your website. Yeah. And at the time, I was doing some tests. I was actually searching. I'd take a whole sentence, and a couple days later, I would paste it into Google. And it was incredible the number of sites that just took these stories from these groups, press, you know, a variety of different promotion people, and were posting those on their blogs like it was their own. And I'm thinking, man, what a scam. What an absolute scam that these folks are doing. And so this is just one step late. You know, I was getting asked to do it for free, so obviously I wasn't on anybody's payola list.
I think the problem is that there are shades of grey. I mean, you know, we try and put stuff up. Sometimes it's completely unique content, and then undoubtedly we take stuff that is from a press release.
Right.
Quite often you just include maybe a quote or two from that press release, you know, and you can see how some people might just take it that wee step further and say, well, look, you know, I'm pretty much doing this anyway. Why should I be bothered? I'll get them to write the article for me. They can slip me a few quid. Everyone's happy.
Yep. Spitballs.
Well, I would think that your audience could tell the difference, though. I mean, if you're putting in things that are written by someone else, the writing style is not going to be consistent. I would think that it could be a little bit of a red flag. Now, if you're part of a bigger blog network where you have a lot of different writers, I think you could probably more likely get away with it.
Yeah, for my blog post to be obvious, there's punctuation in the blog post.
Yeah, it'd be spelled correctly.
So in Spitballs says it wasn't so much about the pay to play itself. The judge wanted to find out if any of the bloggers' articles that were submitted as evidence were paid for by Google or Oracle. Oh, man. It's still going to be good to find out if they release that information. That'll be huge. Last couple articles here. You heard that, of course, the day after Curiosity landed, NASA crashed their prototype lunar lander.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, that happens.
Barely made it off the ground from what I saw.
Yeah, they were on a tether for a while. They unhooked it from the tether, launched it, and it just kind of did one of those up and flipped over type of deals.
Yeah.
And I love their comment that they made on their website. They say, we expect these types of failures. Just kind of like,
You win some, you lose some.
yeah, just kind of, by the way, it just happened. So,
And it
um,
seems odd that they would test a lunar lander like that, because if you think about the moon has like what 20% or 10% of the gravity. So um, I
well,
would think
you
it
got to
would
get
be
the
a completely
dynamics
different
down.
environment. Yeah, it'd be a completely different kind of flight environment, though.
Well, it's a single nozzle system that does this. It's like, hold up a baseball bat and, you know, so
Yeah,
that's what they're trying to
that's
do
what they
is,
were testing, right? Yeah.
yeah, and they've got some sort of gyros or something in there that helps keep it balanced.
It didn't work this
I guess
time.
I guess if you can get it to work here, it'll work on the moon because the gravity is less. You've
Yeah.
got
That's
more time
true.
to respond.
If you don't flip it over on its head.
Houston, we have a problem.
I was, we laugh about this, but I was expecting like, okay, Curiosity sends its first picture back and it's upside down. I was thinking, what, as or it's sitting on its side or something like that. Now, you can't call a tow truck.
Yeah, yeah. My first thought was, I think they need to reassign the engineers that were working on Curiosity to work on the lunar
Yeah,
lander.
absolutely. But they are using new technology, so quote unquote, it's work in progress. Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. All right, last article for today is one that's on the science front and a health front. Scientists invent particle that will let you live without breathing. Now, I'm telling you, this is science fiction coming true. This may seem something like out of a science fiction movie. Researchers have designed a microparticle that can be injected directly into the bloodstream to quickly oxygenate your body, even if you can't breathe anymore. It's one of the best medical breakthroughs in recent years and one that could save millions of lives. The invention developed by a team at Boston Children's Hospital allowed medical teams to keep patients alive for 15 to 30 minutes despite major respiratory failure. This is enough time for doctors and emergency personnel to act without risking a heart attack or permanent brain injuries in the patient.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So
Very cool.
what's the implications for scuba diving?
I saw comments on Twitter already about it. I could go 30 minutes without a tank. It doesn't sound to me like this is something that can be done. Well, you leave it to any people do. That'll be the next thing. Someone will be doing that on scuba diving. But the previous solutions cause gas embolisms, and this new one doesn't. It uses they call it fatty oxygen particles, 2 to 4 micrometers in size. They're suspended in a liquid solution that can be easily carried and used by paramedics.
Oh.
And it carries 3 to 4 times. Basically, the elixir carries 3 to 4 times the oxygen content of our own red blood cells. So you wonder if they would use this on a drowning victim, or where would you use that? Respiratory failure is something that usually you've had a heart attack and you quit breathing. So people just usually don't just stop breathing. I guess maybe choking.
I'd go for burns victims, people who have inhaled smoke and things.
Yeah, maybe true. Yeah, there.
Yeah.
And potentially, I can think a few things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more of an emergency type of medical
Yeah.
thing.
But you got to hope that, they got to be there pretty quick. It's not like it can last too long without O2. And if the traffic is as bad in your neighborhood as it is in mine, you're going to die before they get there. Unless someone's blowing on you, doing mouth to mouth.
Yeah.
So did you guys see?
I wonder if this will.
Go ahead.
I wonder if this will be popular with Olympic athletes.
Yeah, they're back in the shooting up oxygen. Yeah. Well, I tell you, with the way they're competing, who knows? 5 minutes before you slip out back, you like shoot yourself up, and then jeez, that's just too much.
For the next the next Olympics in Denver, Colorado, and at the Mile High City.
They're not going to be breaking the records there. So, guys, anything else you guys saw this past week that was cool or notable, or that you just kind of made you scratch your head a little bit?
Well, I'm excited about the fall. I think if you think about what's happening with Apple and Amazon and and Microsoft and all these new geek projects or products coming, I think it's a pretty exciting time to be a geek these days.
Well, I think you're right. And I think there's going to be, Windows 8. They've announced, I guess, a date now. And I'm still hoping that we're going to get an Apple TV this year, although it's not kind of looking that way. There's no persistent rumors out there in the space. But yeah, I don't know. Andrew, what about your side?
I was just pleased this week that Motorola finally pushed ice cream sandwich out to my Zoom tablet, so I've been playing with it. So it's taken them long enough, but finally got there. So it's good. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's nice to always get the upgrade, but I have to say, and I think I said it last show, the latest update of to Mountain Lion was just like it was almost like a patch. It wasn't even an upgrade. I was not at all. They're not moving the bar forward very far.
Microsoft probably just released it as a part of Patch Tuesday or whatever, or a service pack or whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't think it really has. I mean, as with all Apple things, there's all the hoopla around it, but I think overall people have been somewhat not quite disappointed, but meh. So what?
Yeah, that's the way I was. I was so what? It just didn't. It hasn't done nothing for me, and all these top 10 things. I'm like, I don't even use those things that you're talking about. And on my Mac Mini back here, I keep being told there's a new Grub. It wants to load Grub. I don't even know what Grub is, and when I try to update it, it takes me to a site that makes me want to pay for it. I'm like, I don't even know what Grub is, so I'm, who cares? So
I think it's the bootloader. But,
it's Grubber or something like that. It's not the bootloader. It's something to do with their new. Maybe it wasn't Grub. Let me see if I can see the name of it. It's something to do with their notification stuff that they have that shows up on the.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, something like that. So, but anyway, guys, that's it. Of course, Andrew, I know that. Of course, I should have said this earlier. Andrew's one of our writers here at Geek News Central, and we appreciate all the good content that he puts up on a monthly basis. And anywhere else I can find you, Andrew, at?
Sorry?
Any other place? Do you put any content up anywhere else? Do you have your own site at all?
No, I'm exclusive to GNC.
Well, that's fantastic. So it's one of our great team members there. We appreciate that. And of course, Rob, you can be found at robgreenlee.com, or anything else going on these days, Rob?
That's about it. I can, if you want to follow me on Twitter or whatever, I'm at Rob Greenlee. You can find me there. But that's about it right now. I'm just head down, working towards the future of the areas that I'm working on. So,
and of course, Rob, we don't bring up too many of no inside information on what's happening at Microsoft these days. Probably we don't want you to get you fired. So,
well, we did have our big kind of our Windows 8 kickoff party last week on campus. So it was a big thing.
Did you have a few cocktails and shrimp, that kind of stuff? Is that
cake? And it was like this giant table cake that was basically like a display of all these Surface computers.
So they went large then, huh?
Oh yeah.
Did you see that man cave that I showed in the last show? Let's see if I can find this. Wait, if you guys didn't see this, let's see here if I can find it quickly. Yeah.
And I was looking at that picture, and I was looking at. I have a Tandy Model 100 still, so that's about the only item of vintage computing that I have left.
Let's see here. Can I find this link? Byte seller. There we go. My man cave. Wait to see this, Rob. All right. Here's the pictures coming up now. This guy has an amazing collection of old vintage computers in his man cave. I don't know what his power bill is. I hope he doesn't leave those up and running. But, he's got motherboards on the roof, and he's got, Apple. The list is pretty incredible of the stuff that's in this room. But byteseller.com, and I hope he has a great security system.
Yeah, exactly. He's got a lot of computers there.
Yeah. Just a week or so ago, we added some more cameras here, and the FedEx driver came up and he says, "Boy, when I come to your house," he says, "I know not to drop a package over your fence." And I laughed, and I said, "You never drop packages over the fence." He says, "I know," but he says, "It's pretty obvious when you walk up to your place that you're on candid camera."
Oh,
So,
it's keeping an eye on you.
keep an eye on keeping an eye on other people.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys. Thanks for coming out, and Andrew, thanks for taking time. I know you were out enjoying the weather, and thanks for coming hanging out with us here this early evening hours at on your side of the fence, or your side of the pond, actually.
Yeah, not a problem, Todd. And don't forget that it's the Perseid meteors tonight, so keep an eye out for them.
Oh yeah, that's right. Hopefully, we have clear skies tonight. Did I ever tell you about my story about seeing a that meteor shower from when I was flying in the Navy?
No.
Right
I think so.
after 9/11, when we went into Afghanistan, the obviously the power grid was the first thing that was taken out. I mean, it was just out. So when you were flying over Afghanistan in the early days after 9/11, the country was just dark, black. I mean, black. There was no lights on, and if there were something did turn the lights on, it wasn't on very long. Um, but I was on night vision goggles and sitting in the basically looking in the back observer seat, and I could see,
Oh yeah.
and it was incredible. I mean, absolutely. And, you could see in normal eyes too, but just having the night vision goggles on, really, you saw stuff that you normally wouldn't see coming in on these meteorites, and it was almost to the point of being distracting, and incredible, absolutely incredible. From a just from a observation, because you got this you're not getting any ground lights, and it was really incredible, and but
Yeah, that's what a lot of us that live in big cities have really lost out on is the kind of the impression of the true night sky. It's because of all the ground light that we have. It's a problem, and it really makes for a lot of people in the world really disconnected from the heavens and really what that looks like and how that maybe can really change your views of our existence here on this planet, right? Because of that sky.
you know I,
Uh,
I think anyone that lives in a big city, any parent has a duty to load their kids up in the car with camping gear and go to the desert or go someplace where it's
Mhm.
dark, you
where you
know
can actually see that, right?
A few years ago, I went to Kit Peak in Arizona.
uh-huh
It was just amazing. It's an observatory, but even just when you came outside and you just looked up, and it was just like they say stars like dust. I mean, it was just amazing. I'd never seen anything like it.
It's hard to get to locations where there's not ground light affecting. It is really difficult. So many times the deserts are the only place,
Yeah.
and you got to go places where people don't want to live.
Yeah.
And it's not. I remember we did a cross country trip, and my kids were too small to enjoy. It was actually when we were getting ready to move out here, and my wife and I just laid on a blanket, just looking straight up, and it was just, you don't need a telescope. It's awe-inspiring, And if you're really in one of those dark areas, it's huge. It's a big difference. So,
Yeah,
well,
that's right.
yeah, thanks for the reminder on that. So hopefully we can get a little sky viewing in tonight. And we've got a telescope here. So, of course, telescope's not essentially, unless you're looking the right direction, but might encourage the kids to get a drug out tonight. All right, everyone else on the stream, thanks for hanging out. We appreciate you doing so. I'm going to get this thing up in replay mode. We'll put the show up, and we'll replay it a few times today if you missed the early part. And guys, thanks for coming out and hanging out and taking time out of your schedules today. And until next time, everyone that's on board with us, we'll see you. And aloha.
Goodbye.
Bye.